Attraction is not what most people think it is. It isn't about charm, clever lines, or looking a certain way. It isn't about playing games, performing confidence, or trying to impress strangers. The most magnetic people in any room are rarely the loudest. They're rarely the most polished, and they're almost never the ones trying the hardest to be seen. They're the ones who are completely at ease in themselves. They don't need to prove anything. They listen more than they speak. They move with quiet certainty. They don't flinch under pressure, and they don't chase validation. They simply exist fully, calmly, deliberately, and people naturally lean in, not because they're told to, but because it feels rare, it feels safe, it feels real. That's what we mean when we say dangerously attractive. Not dangerous in a reckless way, but dangerous in a quiet, unshakable way. It's the kind of presence that bypasses manipulation, the kind of energy that doesn't perform, the kind of person who doesn't try to pull attention but naturally holds it. And here's the truth nobody wants to admit. This kind of attraction cannot be faked. It can't be learned from a script, rushed or manufactured. It has to be built, habit by habit, day by day, choice by choice. 2,000 years ago, the Stoics understood this completely. They didn't write about charm. They wrote about character. They didn't teach tricks. They taught alignment because they knew a simple, brutal truth. When your inner world is ordered, your outer presence becomes magnetic. Today, you're going to learn the 10 daily habits that build it. Not for applause, not for attention, but for the quiet, undeniable power of becoming someone who doesn't need to try, because you already are. Stay with me. This isn't about changing how you look, it's about changing how you carry yourself, and that changes everything. Before we go further, let's understand where this wisdom actually comes from. The Stoics didn't believe attraction was something you pursued. They believed it was something you became, not by adding more to yourself, but by removing what was cluttering you. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private journal, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." He wasn't talking about morbidity. He was talking about clarity, about stripping away the noise, about focusing only on what matters, about living with such alignment that your presence alone commands respect without demanding it. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." He understood that most people drain their own magnetism by overthinking, seeking approval, performing instead of being, and chasing external validation instead of building internal certainty. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." He was born a slave. He had no control over his circumstances, but he had complete control over his response. And that control, that quiet, unshakable ownership of his own mind, made him one of the most sought-after teachers of his time, not because he was loud, because he was steady. The Stoics understood that attraction is not performance, it is presence, and presence is built through daily practice. Not through motivation, through discipline, not through tricks, through truth. And the 10 habits you're about to learn are not about becoming someone else. They're about becoming more of who you already are, by stripping away the noise, by mastering your responses, by building quiet certainty, by letting your alignment do the talking. Let's begin. Habit number 1 is to master your response, not suppress it. There's a gap between what happens to you and how you react. That gap is where your power lives, and most people never notice it. They react on instinct, they speak in heat, they defend in panic, they lash out in fear, and in doing so they hand their peace to whoever just triggered them. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." He wasn't asking you to become emotionless. He was asking you to become intentional, because the person who can pause even for 3 seconds before responding is perceived as fundamentally different from everyone else. When someone provokes you, criticizes you, or tests you, their goal isn't always to hurt you. Often, it's to see if you'll break frame, to see if you'll react, to see if you'll hand them control. The person who pauses signals self-mastery. They signal emotional safety. They signal that their inner world isn't at the mercy of the outer one. And that is deeply attractive. Here's how you practice it. When triggered, stop. Don't speak, don't move, just breathe. Count silently, 1, 2, 3. Ask yourself what response actually serves your values. Then speak or act from that place. Not every moment requires a reaction. Some moments require observation, some require silence. Some just require a simple, "I'll think about that," followed by walking away. Master your response not by becoming cold, but by becoming deliberate. And watch how people start leaning in, not because you're trying to impress them, but because you're no longer trying to defend yourself. Habit number 2 is to speak less and observe more. We live in a culture that rewards talking, mistakes volume for confidence, confuses speed with intelligence, and equates visibility with value. But the most magnetic people in any room are rarely the ones dominating the conversation. They're the ones who listen, who watch, who absorb, who speak only when they have something worth saying. Seneca wrote, "We should hunt for the good and avoid the bad with the same care." He applied this to words, to energy, to attention, to silence, because silence isn't emptiness, it's space. Space for observation, space for understanding, space for presence. When you speak less, people naturally project onto you. They assume depth, they assume thoughtfulness, they assume confidence, not because you're hiding, but because you're not performing. And in a world of noise, quiet competence is rare, and rarity is magnetic. Here's the practical protocol. In any conversation, aim to listen about 70% of the time and speak 30%, not to manipulate, but to understand, to be present, to let the other person feel seen. When you do speak, make it count. Slow your pace, choose your words, remove filler, speak with intention. People will remember how you made them feel, not how many words you said. Speak less, observe more. Let your presence do the heavy lifting. And watch how people start seeking you out, not because you chased them, but because you gave them room to breathe. Habit number 3 is to keep your promises to yourself. This is the foundation not of attraction, but of self-respect. Most people break promises to themselves daily. They say they'll wake up early and hit snooze. They say they'll work out and scroll. They say they'll eat well and default to comfort. They say they'll start and wait for the right moment, and each broken promise is a small fracture in self-trust, and self-trust is the quiet engine of magnetism. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Strength doesn't come from grand gestures. It comes from kept promises, small ones, daily ones, unseen ones. When you keep promises to yourself, you signal to your nervous system that you're reliable, that you can count on yourself, that you do what you say you'll do. That internal certainty radiates outward. People feel it. They don't always know why. They just know that you're steady, that you're aligned, that you don't flake on yourself, so they can trust you won't flake on them. Here's how to build it. Pick 3 small promises to yourself daily. Not grand, not overwhelming, just clear. Drink water first thing. Read 10 pages. Walk 15 minutes. Keep your phone away for the first 30 minutes of the day. Write them down. Keep them. Track them privately. Don't announce them. Don't post them. Just keep them. After 30 days, notice the shift. Not in your results, in your posture, in your eye contact, in your quiet confidence. Keep your promises to yourself not for approval but for alignment, and watch how your presence changes, not because you're trying harder, but because you finally trust yourself. Habit number 4 is to detach from outcomes and commit to process. Neediness is the fastest way to kill attraction, not romantic neediness. Existential neediness, the need for a result, the need for validation, the need for someone to confirm you're on the right path. The need for things to work out exactly how you planned. Epictetus said, "Seek not that the things which happen should happen as you wish, but wish the things which happen to be as they are." He wasn't asking you to give up. He was asking you to shift your focus from outcome to effort, from result to repetition, from external confirmation to internal consistency. When you attach your worth to outcomes, you become fragile. Every delay feels like failure. Every rejection feels like judgment. Every setback feels like proof you're not enough. When you attach your worth to process, you become anti-fragile. Delays become data. Rejections become redirection, setbacks become calibration, and your peace remains intact. People are drawn to that peace, not because you're perfect, because you're not desperate. Here's the protocol. Each morning, write down 3 actions, not goals. Actions: send 5 outreach messages, write 1 page, practice for 20 minutes, make 1 call, complete them, don't track the result, don't obsess over the outcome, just complete the action. At the end of the week, notice how your anxiety drops, notice how your focus sharpens, notice how your presence becomes calmer, detach from outcomes, commit to process, let your consistency be your compass, and watch how people start trusting your energy. Not because you guarantee results, but because you guarantee effort. Habit number 5 is to practice voluntary discomfort daily. Comfort breeds fragility. Discomfort builds resilience, and resilience is quietly magnetic. Seneca wrote, "Set aside a certain number of days, during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, 'Is this the condition I feared?'" He wasn't asking you to suffer. He was asking you to train, to prove to your nervous system that you can handle hard things, that you don't need perfect conditions to perform, that you're not fragile. When you avoid discomfort, your tolerance shrinks. Small inconveniences feel like crises. Minor delays feel like disasters, and your presence becomes reactive. When you seek discomfort deliberately, your tolerance expands. You become calm under pressure. You stop flinching at friction. You become steady when others panic, and people are drawn to steady, not because it's flashy, because it's rare. Here's how to practice it. Pick 1 small discomfort daily. Not extreme, not performative, just intentional. A cold finish on your shower, taking the stairs, sitting in silence for 10 minutes, having the hard conversation, not checking your phone for the first hour of the day. Do it daily. Don't complain. Don't announce it. Just do it. After 30 days, notice the shift, not in your strength, in your calm, in your willingness to step into hard things without hesitation. Practice voluntary discomfort not to prove toughness, but to build trust in yourself, and watch how your presence changes. Not because you're chasing pain, but because you're no longer afraid of it. Habit number 6 is to hold your frame under pressure. Frame isn't arrogance. Frame is alignment. It's the quiet certainty that you know who you are, and you won't abandon yourself to please, panic, or perform. Marcus Aurelius faced plagues, wars, betrayals, and constant criticism. He could have fractured, he could have bent, he could have become reactive, defensive, desperate. Instead, he wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." He didn't fight pressure, he moved through it, with posture, with breath, with presence. When pressure hits, most people collapse into themselves or explode outward. Both signal instability, both drain attraction. The person who holds frame signals safety. They signal competence. They signal that they aren't at the mercy of the moment, and people naturally orient toward that stability. Here's the protocol. When pressure hits, plant both feet firmly on the ground. Lower your shoulders. Breathe in for 4 seconds. Hold for 4. Exhale for 6. Speak slower. Move slower. Think clearer. Respond. Don't react. Not every moment requires action. Some moments require stillness. Some require observation. Some just require a simple, "I'm here, I'm steady." Hold your frame not to dominate, but to anchor, and watch how people start leaning toward you. Not because you're loud, but because you're solid. Habit number 7 is to curate your inputs ruthlessly. Your mind isn't a storage unit, it's a garden. What you plant grows, what you water survives, what you ignore withers. Seneca wrote, "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more in imagination than in reality." He understood that most suffering comes from unfiltered inputs, from endless scrolling, from consuming drama, from absorbing other people's chaos, from letting algorithms dictate attention. And attention is the currency of presence. When your inputs are chaotic, your mind is chaotic. When your mind is chaotic, your presence is scattered. When your presence is scattered, you feel invisible, not because you're unseen, because you're unfocused. When your inputs are curated, your mind sharpens, your focus deepens, your presence becomes magnetic, not because you're trying, because you're clear. Here's the protocol. Once a week, unfollow accounts that drain you. Mute groups that add noise. Delete apps that steal attention. Replace 1 hour of consumption with creation or reflection. Do a 24-hour digital fast monthly, not as punishment, as protection. Curate your inputs not to isolate, but to elevate. And watch how your presence shifts, not because you're hiding, but because you're no longer diluted. Habit number 8 is to give without expecting return. Transaction kills magnetism. Generosity builds it, not performative generosity, not public charity, quiet, uncredited, unannounced giving. Because the moment you attach expectation to giving, it becomes a trade. And trades don't create attraction, they create obligation. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What we do for ourselves dies with us. What we do for others, and the world remains and is immortal." He wasn't asking you to become a martyr. He was asking you to become a contributor. To shift from what can I get to what can I add. When you give without expecting return, you signal abundance, not financial, emotional. You signal that you don't need validation to act, that you don't need credit to contribute, that you're whole enough to give without draining yourself. And people feel that. Not because you announce it, because you live it. Here's the protocol. Once daily, do one thing that helps someone else that no one will ever know about. Leave a kind note, pay for someone's coffee, share a resource without tagging yourself, listen without fixing, hold space without inserting yourself. Don't announce it, don't track it, don't expect gratitude, just do it. After 30 days, notice the shift, not in how others treat you, in how you carry yourself, in your quiet confidence, in your unspoken certainty that you are enough. Give without expecting return, not to be seen, but to be aligned. And watch how your presence changes, not because you're chasing love, but because you're already full. Habit number 9 is to walk away from what drains you. Boundaries aren't walls, they're filters, and filters create clarity. Epictetus said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." He wasn't talking about isolation. He was talking about selection, about choosing what stays and what goes, about understanding that your energy is finite and spending it on what aligns, not what exhausts. When you tolerate drain, you signal tolerance for disrespect. When you walk away from drain, you signal respect for yourself. And self-respect is the quiet engine of attraction. People are drawn to those who don't beg for scraps, who don't overstay, who don't apologize for protecting their peace, who simply leave when it's time. Here's the protocol. When you feel drain, name it silently. Don't justify. Don't explain. Don't debate. Say, "I need to step away," or simply leave. Don't look back. Don't apologize. Don't overthink. Return to your center. Not every relationship deserves your presence. Not every conversation deserves your energy. Not every room deserves your time. Walk away, not in anger, in alignment. And watch how your presence shifts. Not because you're rejecting people, but because you're honoring yourself. Habit number 10 is to become comfortable in your own company. This is the final habit and the most important. Neediness isn't created by loneliness. It's created by discomfort with oneself. When you can't sit quietly with your own thoughts, you seek external noise to fill the space. When you can't be alone without scrolling, you seek external validation to feel alive. When you can't enjoy your own presence, you chase other people's presence to feel whole. Seneca wrote, "If you wish to be loved, love." But before you can love others, you must be able to sit with yourself, without distraction, without performance, without escape. When you're comfortable in your own company, you stop chasing, you stop performing, you stop over-explaining, you stop seeking approval. You simply exist fully, calmly, deliberately, and people are drawn to that. Not because you're trying to attract them, but because you're no longer trying to escape yourself. Here's the protocol. Once daily, spend 1 hour completely alone. No phone, no podcast, no background noise. Just you. Walk, journal, sit, breathe, observe, reflect. Don't fill the silence. Let it hold you. After 30 days, notice the shift, not in your relationships, in your relationship with yourself, in your quiet confidence, in your unshakable peace. Become comfortable in your own company, not to isolate, but to integrate, and watch how your presence changes. Not because you're chasing connection, but because you're already connected to yourself. Let's pause for a moment and look at what you've just learned. 10 habits, not tricks, not shortcuts, not performance, architecture. Each one builds on the last. Master your response and you create space. Speak less and you create presence. Keep your promises and you create self-trust. Detach from outcomes and you create calm. Practice discomfort and you create resilience. Hold your frame and you create stability. Curate your inputs and you create clarity. Give without return and you create abundance. Walk away from drain and you create boundaries. Sit with yourself and you create wholeness. Together they don't make you loud, they make you grounded. They don't make you flashy, they make you magnetic. They don't make you needy, they make you complete. The Stoics didn't write about attraction, they wrote about alignment. Because they knew a simple truth: when your inner world is ordered, your outer presence becomes undeniable. And that's why it's dangerous, not because it harms, because it bypasses manipulation, because it doesn't try to impress, because it simply exists fully, calmly, deliberately. And people lean in, not because they're told to, because it feels rare, because it feels safe, because it feels real. You don't need to try harder, you need to try cleaner. Strip away the noise. Build the habits. Let your alignment do the talking. If this landed somewhere it needed to, share it with one person who is building quiet presence right now. New Stoic wisdom here, every single week. And in the comments, tell me honestly which of these 10 habits you're starting today. Just tell me the number, because I think you already know, and I think it's time to stop chasing attention and start building alignment. One habit, one day, one quiet choice at a time, until one day you look up and realize you're no longer trying to be seen, you're simply being, and that is enough. Master your response. Speak less. Keep your promises. Detach from outcomes. Practice discomfort. Hold your frame. Curate your inputs. Give without return. Walk away from drain. Sit with yourself. Become dangerously attractive, not by performing, by aligning.